Get your popcorn ready. The Ohio State Buckeyes are set to take the stage at Big Ten Media Days in downtown Indianapolis, Indiana. Ryan Day is bringing 3 players to Lucas Oil Stadium, and this show is dedicated to them and what we can expect to hear from them during this big event.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Buckeye fans? Welcome back to another episode of Locked On Buckeyes for the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast. It is Wednesday, July 27th in the year 2022, and I want to thank you for making Locked On Buckeyes your first listen or first watch of every single day. On today's episode, we will discuss what we can expect to hear from 3 Buckeye players that'll be representing the Ohio State University at Big Ten Media Days. A Michigan football player said something very interesting about the Buckeyes last season. But first, Ryan Day. The Big Ten knows saving the best for last is always a great move for business. Ryan Day, the man of the hour, will be taking the stage, I do believe, at 12:30 p.m. Eastern time for his podium session. It'll be live on the Big Ten Network for everyone to watch and enjoy. And I am excited to seeing Ryan Day and to hear what Ryan Day has to say during this big event. Last year at Big Ten Media Days, it was my first time being there. I'm taking it all in, but also realizing some coaches will give you a little bit to talk about. Some coaches will not only give you something to talk about, they'll give you something to chew on that you can discuss for the next few weeks, not just leading into fall camp, even into fall camp. Some coaches, you got to hang on their every word. Some coaches, they'll show you and they'll tell you why they are the coach that they are and why they have been as successful as they have been at their university. And Ryan Day is that guy. Confident. He's going to come in, honestly, prepared and ready to answer questions about losing to the team up north last year and what it means and what Ohio State is doing now to make sure that that doesn't happen in back-to-back years. But he's going to answer questions about his defense. He's going to answer questions about the offense. He's going to answer questions about Stroud, Henderson, and Njigba, Harrison Jr., Egbuka, Fleming. I'm sure he's going to answer questions about a lot of things. And the Big Ten knows having Ryan Day last in this event at the podium session is great for day 2. It's a great way to finish things on the Big Ten Network as far as the coaches speaking. But it's also great because Ohio State's going to steal the show. Yeah, day 1, you got Michigan. You got Harbaugh, who sounded weird like he always does. I mean, he literally answered a question with, I don't know. Now, granted, the question that the gentleman asked was a little bit of a weird one. It almost didn't act like he didn't look at the schedule that he was asking Harbaugh about just a year ago. But for Harbaugh to just literally say, I don't know, while answering a question and then looking puzzled, shocked, stunned, not knowing where he was in a daze, both the question and the response from Harbaugh were just a little bit weird. I don't expect that from Ryan Day. I'm not going to harp on and talk about Harbaugh and talk about and discuss, oh, he's this, oh, he's that, oh, he's this. Not doing it. Your boy doesn't need to. Harbaugh, you know how he is. He discusses and he does those things all the time. This is all about Ryan Day. And I really think when it comes to Ryan Day stepping to the podium, we're not only going to hear questions about the Michigan game, Michigan loss, Oregon game last year possibly, so struggles throughout the season, how was Stroud's health, how was Stroud in the offseason, some of the progressions of Henderson, the receivers, the O-line, the defense. I think primarily a lot of questions will be about the Ohio State defense, how the players are handling Jim Knowles' new defense, how they're handling what he is preaching and what he is teaching. I remember last year in the offseason, I don't think anybody really thought there would be much of an issue, at least as drastic as it was with Kerry Coombs leading the Buckeye defense last year before he got demoted towards the beginning of the season. I don't think anybody really thought there would be any hiccup or anything with that. But when you think about what actually takes place, you quickly understand why there is an issue, why there is a problem with Kerry Coombs. So I don't know if we question, were players bought in last year? I mean, I don't know if we questioned it. Were players really picking up what Kerry Coombs was putting down? I don't know if we questioned anything with Kerry Coombs last year, which may have been us being naive and just assuming he would get the job done being his first year as a defensive coordinator throughout his entire tenure as a coach on any level. Maybe we should have. I think we will this year. I believe Ryan Day understands he's going to get questions about NIL, which is not going away. Going to get questions possibly about the portal, especially the possibility of unlimited transfers. That's going to come out as well. I do think Ryan Day's also going to get questions about USC and UCLA joining the Big Ten. A few coaches got questions about that on day one. Don't ask me which ones. I forgot off the top of my head, and my notes are not right in front of me from that day. Check my Twitter feed out at jstevens07. Scroll a little bit. You'll see some quotes for different coaches that spoke on day one. If you scroll a little bit more, you'll see some from Kevin Warren. And the one interesting thing that he said on day one of Big Ten Media Days was that he views later time zones on the West Coast as a positive thing. Ohio State games kicking off at 10 p.m. Eastern time. It might happen. You talk about people not liking the later kicks on the East Coast or the Midwest. Get ready. They're coming. Prep yourselves now. You got a couple years to do so. Just prepare now to stay up late to watch your Buckeyes dominate an opponent late in the day. Ryan Day needs to be prepared for a lot of things to come out. A lot of questions. A lot of things, maybe some unexpected questions as well. We don't know what's going to come with college football over the next few years. We don't know how Ryan Day is going to have to alter how he manages the roster over the next few years. One thing we do know, expansion is going to come. NIL is going to get a little bit interesting. The portal is going to change here very, very soon. USC and UCLA are coming to the Big Ten, possibly Notre Dame, possibly Oregon, possibly Washington, possibly Miami and or Florida State. All of these things are possible. And with that being said, these are things that Ryan Day might have to answer during day two when he takes the podium of Big Ten Media Days. Guys, not only will Ryan Day take the podium, but 3 Buckeye players will be there as well, representing the football team. What can we expect from them when they are front and center on day 2 of Big Ten Media Days? I'll tell you next right here on Locked on Buckeyes. BetOnline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your betting needs. Find all your favorite sports and events at the #1 online source for odds, lines, and games. Find reviews and news of every league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online source for all your sports wagering information, from live in-game betting, scores, and podcast. They have you covered. Head to BetOnline today or use your mobile device to learn more about the action happening today. BetOnline, where the game starts. I will be at Big Ten Media Days. Mentioned it a little bit earlier. I'm going to keep mentioning it throughout this show. This is a fun event, a very fun event. Get to connect with other members of the media, get to connect with and talk to different players, hear how their offseason is going, hear how their progression has been, hear and learn about them, even get some off-the-wall things. Things don't always have to be about ball. So come back tomorrow on tomorrow's show. We'll recap day 2 of Big Ten Media Days as the Ohio State Buckeyes are front and center representing your favorite university. 3 players are set to represent the school. Some of them have set records this past year. One of them was a major bright spot on the defense, and the other, well, some, but the one of them, most importantly, C.J. Stroud, the quarterback of the Ohio State Buckeyes, a man who is in the running for Heisman Trophy right now. Before the season even starts, he's up there being one of the favorites. Some of your Outstanding Player of the Year awards. He's going to be up in there for that as well. A lot of your watch lists are coming out saying preseason watch list. These players are in the running in the preseason for this award. Well, C.J. Stroud's going to be in the running for Player of the Year awards and the Heisman and other things like that. And Stroud's going to be somebody, he's going to have to answer questions about his play in certain games. He's going to have to answer questions about how Ohio State has been in the offseason, how they have progressed, and some things that he has learned about himself and the university while the offseason has gone on. I have realized with CJ Stroud that he has no problem handling a lot of things on the field. People may question his competitive balance, his competitive nature. People may wonder, does he get happy feet? But as we recently realized, Stroud is somebody, he handles things very, very well. And he has learned how to be a person that can handle adversity, especially when you're in front of a lot of people. And Stroud's going to be someone tomorrow, I believe, I'm sure you believe, we all believe that Stroud is the quarterback that you want leading the Buckeyes in 2022. He might get grilled in a way, or he might get some questions that you might not even think. Now, granted, I mentioned some about Ryan Day, and I do think at some point he's going to get some in regards to Big Ten adding 2 schools. Even though it doesn't affect him because he would not be at the school, I do think that at some point he's going to get questions about USC, UCLA, what he thinks about the future of the conference with those schools there. I do think that at some point he is going to get some questions about playoff expansion. Would it help the Buckeyes down the road? NIL. I mean, the man literally made a game decision by going from a $150,000 vehicle to a $200,000 vehicle. And so we are seeing things now from Stroud just basically right now from just him as a player, him as a person, and kind of his mindset and all of this. A lot of that's going to come out tomorrow. Now, the next player is going to come up that'll be on front at center stage at Big Ten Media Days is Jaxon Smith-Njigba. And one thing I glossed over to mention just a minute ago is that Ryan Day is going to have 15 minutes in front of the media that'll be live on the Big Ten Network. I do believe that's from 12:30 till 12:45 p.m. Eastern time. Many of you guys will be at lunch or will be just relaxing at that time. Turn on your TV, watch it, enjoy it, and just see what Ryan Day has to say. And then everybody else, Ryan Day included, in 3 players, Njigba, Stroud, and Ronnie Hickman, will all be players that will get an hour of their podium time, individual podium time, for the media to attend as well. And so I hope they spread them out, because I would not like for them to have the Ohio State players and Ryan Day speaking at the same time, because last year, Ryan Day had all the media right there at him at his individual podium time, and Jerry Emig, the SID, Sports Information Director at Ohio State, was literally filtering and handling the press conference, the individual podium time, like it was a press conference at The Ohio State University, calling on people one by one to ask a question to the head coach. With that in mind, let's get back to Jaxon Smith-Njigba. Record-setting year at Ohio State, 95 catches, 1,606 receiving yards, 10-plus touchdowns. I mean, he was a bright spot. One thing I think he may get questions about, and I don't know if I'll ask it or somebody else, your 2 biggest games last year were when the number 1 receiver at Ohio State, at least on the depth chart and by many, Garrett Wilson, was absent. 15 catches against Nebraska, 240 receiving yards, 15 catches against Utah, over 300 receiving yards. And in both of those games, you showed up and showed out. You're the number 1 option for the Buckeyes this year. Now, granted, you are not going to be the outside receiver, probably still going to be in your traditional slot spot where you were last year. How do you think, me asking to Njigba, how do you think you will be spotted and play this year, knowing that you are the number 1 option for the Buckeyes, but also somebody that's not playing at the traditional number 1 receiver spot? Now you say, Jay, why would you word it that way? Well, because Marvin Harrison Jr. and I probably would assume Emeka Egbuka will be on the opposite sides of the field, and then Njigba on one slot to the right or one slot to the left. You got to wonder if Njigba is just the number 1 option and the best option on the field, and Wilson and Olave are not getting the attention that they are going to get. Shouldn't Njigba have a bigger year? The one reason why I think the numbers might not be as eye-popping as they were last year, because I do think the Buckeyes will have a better or more balanced attack offensively this year. But Garrett Wilson, like I said, Wilson was off the field against Nebraska. Wilson wasn't there. Wilson and Olave weren't there against Utah, and then Njigba just went off. I don't think anybody will say this year that Harrison Jr., Egbuka, or Fleming are better than Wilson or Olave. So we could see, me thinking out loud, Njigba go off quite a few times. 10-plus catch games, 200-plus receiving yard games, two touchdown games. We could see that numerous times because he just kills in that slot. So I'm curious. I'm probably going to ask him. What's your mindset going into this year? You're losing your two receivers on that went in the first round of the draft, back-to-back picks in the first round, 10th and 11th, respectively. What's your mindset? Are you expecting bigger numbers, bigger things in 2022 than you had in 2021? I think it's a realistic question, and I do think it's possible for that to happen. Now, when it comes to Ronnie Hickman, the third player that'll be at the Big Ten Media Days representing the Ohio State Buckeyes, this one's really, really interesting because Hickman might get asked a lot more questions about Jim Knowles and the new defense during his hour individual podium session than maybe anybody else because, well, Knowles is a new guy. Hickman was there, and Ronnie Hickman flourished with the defense last year. No matter if it was Kerry Coombs calling it or if it was Matt Barnes calling it, Ronnie Hickman was a bright spot. He was the bright spot that the Buckeyes needed at that time. And so I do personally think that he's going to get questions about this very thing. But how does he respond? That's my thing. I wonder, and I'm curious, just me being a regular curious guy, I wonder how he's going to handle that very thing. Hickman's going to get a lot of questions about the new defense, what he likes, how he's improved, the mindset of the players, what he thinks about transfers, Tanner McAllister and Chip Traynham. What about the young guys on the defense? How is Sonny Styles, who he hasn't been able to practice with yet because Sonny Styles was still finishing up his junior year of high school before coming to Ohio State and at the beginning of the summer. What does he think about C.J. Hicks, another one, or Gabe Powers, a couple linebackers? What does he think about the growth of Denzel Burke and Cam Brown? What does he think about having Josh Proctor back? These are all realistic things that Hickman might have to answer, as well as things about NIL, things about his future, things about his NFL draft prospects, his prospects as a pro, and things of that nature. Big Ten Media Days is fun. Ryan Day, 3 Buckeyes are going to be there tomorrow, or well, today. But just a day ago, a Michigan player, a tight end, made some interesting comments, and well, his comments might rub you the wrong way. But once you get past the surface, will you think it makes sense, or will you think it doesn't make sense? What did he say? It's Michigan tight end Erick All. We'll discuss that next right here on Locked on Buckeyes. We all know when Michigan comes in, especially after beating Ohio State last season, when they're at Big Ten Media Days, they might gloat a little bit, or they might share some thoughts about that win and their mindset during said win that they have not shared before. They might share a few things that might be a little interesting and might rub you the wrong way and might make you say, why you say that? Why you hurt my feelings? Why are you bringing up that game right now? It is July 26th when you're at Big Ten Media Days discussing this very game. But we all know Ohio State fans would do it. I would do it. I would keep rubbing it in the face of Michigan fans. You will see me during the football season discussing things and talking trash to Michigan fans. A few of them, some that I do discussed and talk to every now and then on purpose because it's fun. Trash talk is fun, and I've already told them, expect me to run my mouth during the season, especially when Michigan plays Ohio State. But Erick All had this quote about that game last year, where the Wolverines beat the Buckeyes. I want to read it word for word. You let me know what you think in the comment section below. Quote, "It's just we were expecting to do what we did, and we're going to be doing the same thing, expecting the same thing this upcoming year," end quote. As a former competitor, well, still a competitor, but just in a different way, I would want this to be said, a belief about me. If I was Erick All in Michigan and they beat Ohio State last year in the way that they did, we were expecting to do what we did, and we're going to be doing the same thing. I would want that belief. I would want my belief. Now in high school, we played Lawrence North High School. Well, Lawrence Central was my school. When we beat Lawrence North, my mindset was we were expecting to do that, and we're going to be doing it again. That was my mindset. So I am not knocking him for that. Now, some of you might say, Jay, shouldn't this be bulletin board material? We discussed bulletin board material last year as Cade McNamara in the off season had some interesting words about Ohio State and his thought process about Ohio State, and he really gave Ohio State some really good bulletin board material. It didn't work. Didn't work at all. Now, I may discuss next week why I think that there's a difference between Ryan Day's football team and Urban Meyer's football team that many people aren't discussing. We'll discuss that next week because, well, Thursday's show is going to be all about recapping Ohio State at Big Ten Media Days. Friday, we're going to continue our drafting of the best Ohio State players over the past 20 years, kind of celebrating the 2002 National Championship win the Buckeyes had over the Miami Hurricanes. So sometime next week, Monday or Tuesday, we'll be discussing something that might be missing from Ryan Day's Ohio State that we need to get and bring back that we saw all the time when Urban Meyer was the head man in Columbus. But when LC was the way what we called it, when LC played LN, we expected to beat them in football. Now, basketball is a different story. Y'all might remember Lawrence North. That's where Greg Oden and Mike Conley played the basketball. I was in school at the same time as them. They graduated in 2006. I graduated in 2007 in the rival schools. I remember going into those basketball games, and I went to every one that LC played LN when I was in high school. And you know what? I expected LC to get blown out. LN expected to blow LC out. Why? Well, they were one of the better teams, not just in the state, but also in the country. They won a national championship. Greg Oden and Mike Conley's senior year, they were undefeated, I do believe, in back-to-back seasons. I mean, it was just, and they had one of the best coaches in Indiana high school basketball history. I mean, one of the state's best coaches, two of the country's best players. It just made sense for them to destroy and annihilate and demolish the school that I went to, and it happened all the time. On the football field, we expected to win every time. Didn't happen, but we expected to win. And when we won, we expected it, and we planned on doing it again the very next year. I don't knock Erick All for what he said. I don't. The one thing I would say is that every player at Ohio State should use this as fuel. As Erick All is confident in saying, we expected to do what we did. And we're going to be doing the same thing again. Yeah, I don't need a bulletin board material. Keep that statement in your mind, because you know what? At the end of the regular season, the Saturday after Thanksgiving, you, the Buckeyes, get a chance to take on the Wolverines once again. And the last thing the Ohio State Buckeye players want is to lose to the Michigan Wolverines in back-to-back seasons. They say, man, we had bulletin board material. Man, we went harder in the offseason. Man, we did this. Man, we did that. And it happened again. We lost again. You don't want that to happen. So use this as your own personal fuel. If he's going to say this now at Big Ten Media Days, great. So be it. Say what you think you should say, and I have no problem with what he said as a competitor, because as a competitor, you should expect to win. You should expect to win again the very next year. You should expect to dominate your rival, and you should expect to dominate your rival the next time you play them. But Buckeye players, use this as fuel. Oh, yeah. If last year's loss doesn't give you a bad enough sting and hurt you enough, use this as fuel. Use this as a fuel you need going into not just the regular season, but also the final game of the regular season, because you don't want to lose 2 times in a row to that school. You don't want to. It's unacceptable. It shouldn't happen. Use this as fuel. And while doing so, demolish them, annihilate them, destroy them on the Saturday after Thanksgiving. Y'all, I'm ready for the season, if you can't tell. I'm also ready for the Buckeyes to destroy the Wolverines at the end of the year. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Locked On Buckeyes. You can follow me on Twitter at jstevens07. You can also send all of your emails to jstevens317 at gmail.com. Remember to make Locked On Buckeyes your first listen every day. Now, tap over and search the Locked On Big Ten podcast to make that your second listen of every single day. Locked On Big Ten is a place for you to stay up to date with what's going on in the Big Ten Conference, as the host, Nate Dickinson, is joined by our local experts and takes you around the Big Ten in 30 minutes. Locked On Buckeyes, just like Locked On Big Ten, is free and available on any of your favorite audio podcast platforms and also on YouTube.